And now I would like to invite our next speaker. This is Professor Christine Graf. She's the department head of the Department for Physical Activity and Public Health at the German Sport University. She's also the vice president of the German Association of Sports Medicine and Prevention. So please, I look forward to your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure for me to take part and to talk about the role of physical activity and fitness. And I try to answer the big question if it's only energy consumption or is it even more in terms of browning, myokines, etc. So we already have heard the big number of overweight and obese people, and overweight and obesity is associated with a higher number of non-communicable diseases, and this leads to the recurrent debate in terms of the necessity of a so-called cardiovascular polypill, including aspirin, including beta blocker, etc. In terms of lifestyle, we just have such a polypill, and this is exercise. And this is what meant by exercise as medicine, published as an article from Peterson and Saltin and in 2015, and they summarized 26 chronic diseases against which physical activity acts in a kind of preventive or therapeutic manner. And here is an overview of all those chronic diseases, and you can see that the spectrum is very, very broad, ranging from psychiatric, neurological diseases, pulmonary diseases, musculoskeletal disorders, some types of cancer, especially breast and colon carcinoma, and the big number of cardiometabolic diseases like obesity, diabetes type 2, hypertension, up to stroke. And I don't want to go deeper into the discussion what's the best exercise. We already have heard some recommendations in terms of 150 minutes of moderate intensity per week. There's a discussion if high intensity training would improve endothelial function or something like that. But at the end, we have a huge number of papers dealing with the exercise and health, more than 130,000. There you can find all. And therefore, let me summarize that the best exercise is that you can do, or you are doing, and you are enjoying, and it has to specialize on the skills and the affinity of patients and their health status. And this is important, and Dominic already told that makes you fitter. And fitness is the surrogate parameter of physical activity. Sometimes you see that in the so-called metabolic equivalence, and in this slide or in this figure, you see the difference in survival between the very unfit people and the very fit people over 2 decades. And you see that an increase in fitness is associated with a lower mortality and a lower cardiovascular morbidity. And it is a good news, no fake news. It's a good news to say that just performing a little bit of exercise, especially if you're sedentary, that provides the best benefits or the highest increase in your health outcome. And that's why I entitled this slide with a small amount and a high effect. It's absolutely contrary, in a contradiction to that, when we talk about obesity and the role of energy costs of physical activity. On the left-handed side, you see some examples. Listening to my lecture, 10 minutes means 20 kilocalories if you're male and normal weight. Of course, energy cost depends on weight, depends on exercise experience, training status, etc. If you decide to go swimming instead of listening, you will burn more than 100 kilocalories. But I think the key message of this slide becomes more evident when I ask the question, how many steps you have to perform to burn 1 sugar cube? And the answer is 500. And those 3, you have to perform 1,500 kilocalories. Therefore, it's absolutely impossible to lose weight just with exercising, because the amount is very high, have to be very high. And therefore, let's have a closer look to the secret of exercise, to what's behind our polypill exercise. And I don't want to talk about the well-known benefits in terms of lowering blood pressure, improvement of insulin sensitivity, and blood lipid profile, etc. I just want to go deeper under the skin, under the membrane of the skeletal muscle. And comparable to adipose tissue, skeletal muscle works as a hormonal organ too, releasing more than 600 so-called myokines, cytokines, chemokines, peptides, being involved in the adaptation processes in terms of exercising. And this is skeletal muscle hypertrophy, metabolism, and this is important in this field. They are also responsible for the crosstalk with other organ systems. And as you can see in this slide, nearly every organ system is contacted by muscle information myokines. And I want to point out one myokine, that's irisin. Irisin was firstly described in 2012 by Bostrom and colleagues, and it's involved in the skeletal muscle hypertrophy, glucose metabolism also, but it's important for the crosstalk with the adipose tissue. And irisin is involved in in a process called browning, and as you might know, that fat mass mainly consists of so-called white fat cells. They're characterized by a big fat vacuole, a small squeezed nucleus, and a low amount of our cell power stations, mitochondria. And they are associated with a higher risk of obesity and diabetes. And in contrast to that, babies have the brown fat cells, and they are involved in the thermoregulation. They protect babies from cold. And they are characterized by a higher amount of mitochondria, and they have lower lipid droplets, and they protect against, or they seem to protect against, obesity and diabetes. And that's what irisin and other key regulators do. They initiate the process from the differentiation from white adipose tissue up to brown, not nearly brown, they call beige fat cells, but that's the process which is initiated by irisin or promoted by irisin. And let's have one last look on our cell power station, the mitochondria. Mitochondrial function is absolutely necessary to keep a person healthy. And mitochondrial dysfunction is involved in the development of all before mentioned non-communicable diseases. And an unhealthy lifestyle lowers the mitochondrial mass, lowers the activity of mitochondria, and in contrast to that, physical activity promotes the health of our mitochondria, the health of our power cell station. And thus should be, or in my opinion, this is the key, this regulation of mitochondrial health is the key to keep us healthy via physical activity. And therefore, let me summarize. I hope I can tell you that exercise has a broad spectrum of health benefits, and that exercise is much more than caloric consumption. And last but not least, I think I can show you exercise is really medicine, and therefore I want to end with a popular but a little bit modified sentences: make your muscles great again. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Professor Graf. May I take this from you, please?